I'm Steve Stager, and I have a question for you. What is beer? There's the dictionary definition. A carbonated fermented alcoholic beverage, usually made from malted cereal grain, especially barley, is flavored with hops and typically contains less than 5% alcohol content. But what is beer to us, to Colorado? And in an industry that creates such diverse flavors and styles, why is the industry itself not that diverse? We're here at Public Offering Brewing in Denver. Grab a stool and a pint. This is Pouring Colorado. Start things off with a history lesson, shall we? Say this is today. Now, you go back 4 beers, or 40 years, you'll find the state's modern resurgence of breweries. I say resurgence because the state's relationship with beer is older than the state itself. Records show the very first breweries in Colorado opened in 1859. They didn't last very long, but their creation came at a pretty significant period in Colorado history.
The beginnings of beer in Colorado can be traced to the gold rush.
In the late 19th century, the quest for wealth, for a new life, brought a whole lot of people to America's West.
The first big crush of Euro-Americans came to Colorado.
It was when what we know now as big beer towns began.
The Central European immigrants who came to Colorado during the during the gold rush were the ones who brought beer really just to sort of mine the miners.
Sam Bach knows his beer. He's a historian who studied the beverage's beginnings in Colorado.
So a saloon had to serve many purposes.
From saloons came Colorado's very first brewery. Rocky Mountain Brewery was founded in Denver in 1859.
From there, the industry really just exploded.
Then in 1916, Colorado went dry. 4 years before Prohibition became law nationwide.
Our drinking habits in Colorado were outrageously out of control.
17 years later, Prohibition ended, but it would take decades for beer to really make a comeback in Colorado.
You know, there was a small core of home brewers that kind of carried the pitcher, so to speak.
Charlie Papazian has spent a lifetime with beer. The man known by many names.
Brew guru, beer guru, godfather of beer.
Taught home brewing at his home in Boulder.
Things changed, you know, the culture was changing.
Then in 1982, Papazian founded the largest celebration of beer culture, the Great American Beer Festival.
It worked really, really well.
These days, more than 9,000 breweries are spread across the U.S. Colorado is home to 428, give or take. And where once Europe influenced the rise of beer here, the opposite is now true.
It's almost been a push-me-pull-you.
Melissa Cole is a judge at GABF and a beer writer from the UK.
I will stand by my flat brown warm beer until my dying day.
She knows beer on both sides of the pond and its evolution.
It's not just night and day, it's black and white versus a huge rainbow. It's like, wow, we can get these flavors now. So what happened then was that the American market started hugely influencing initially very much the UK market, and then obviously lots of the rest of the world.
Which has brought Colorado a very different kind of gold.
I don't think anybody foresaw what this would look like.
We all did drink a few beers and go home and cry because, you know, this is hard for everybody. Everybody's suffering.
COVID-19 left the most recent scars on Colorado's beer industry.
Effective immediately, State of Colorado and I are ordering temporary suspension of dine-in services at restaurants and bars.
That declaration came on March 16th, 2020. Colorado had 433 craft breweries that year that poured $3.3 million into the economy the year before. Revenue plummeted by around 80%, so breweries got resourceful.
Right away on that day, we started doing curbside and to-go orders.
But couldn't avoid the continued losses. At the start of the pandemic, breweries nationwide laid off or furloughed 56% of staff. After 10 weeks of to-go beer, Colorado breweries welcomed back workers and reopened half full. But come November 2020, another shutdown.
As of 5 o'clock today, our taproom indoor seating is closed for the foreseeable future. You could tell in people's moods that it's changed.
By the numbers, 2020 could have been much worse. 26 breweries in Colorado closed that year compared to 19 the year before. As far as the economic impact, the beer industry in Colorado generated about $2 billion. A year later, 2021, that number was $2.4 billion, ranking our state as 6th in the nation when it comes to the beer business. More than 17,000 people worked in the industry statewide. Which brings us back to those scars we mentioned. Even years after the start of the pandemic, Colorado breweries continue to deal with the fallout from it, as John Glasgow found out.
More than a decade in business.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 11th anniversary. It was really fun.
Denver Beer Company's co-founder Patrick Crawford has a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, we're still moving forward with our opening up a tap room in the Lowry neighborhood. We're still pursuing new opportunities.
Opportunities nearly sidelined.
It was terrifying, for sure.
By the COVID-19 pandemic.
In the beginning of the pandemic, those were some stressful, sleepless nights. I mean, honestly, there were moments when we were thinking that everything we had been working on for the last 8 years was going to just evaporate.
They weren't alone. It was a fear they shared with other Colorado craft brewers.
I think in 2020, brewers were afraid primarily just of demand. Were people going to be able to buy their beer, and could they buy their beer?
A Brewers Association survey at the beginning of the pandemic found more than 63% of craft breweries feared that they wouldn't last more than 3 months.
Amazingly, we saw remarkably few closures during the pandemic.
Bart Watson is the chief economist for the Brewers Association.
I think now many of the fears are more nuts and bolts business fears.
Those business fears are holdovers from the pandemic, like material shortages and supply chain issues.
It was like a 1-2 punch. We couldn't get cans, so we've had to scramble. We've had to buy cans from Canada. We've had to buy a bunch of tractor trailers in the parking lot to store materials.
Issues affecting their bottom line.
That has increased our costs. It's made it more expensive for us to do business.
And the price you pay.
We did a solid price increase at the beginning of this year that got us up to where we can do business now in this new environment.
Now as we move away from the pandemic.
You know, we're very lucky that we're able to maintain a healthy business.
Crawford keeps moving forward.
It's really fun to walk into this brewery every day and try to figure out the challenges that we have here too.
Covered the history, now it's time to pour up a not so tasty side of things.
Anyone, especially who works in the industry, who is saying they're surprised and shocked by this, their eyes haven't been open.
Starting with the nationwide movement to confront sexual harassment and sexual assault in the beer industry.
And so I think now that it's hard to ignore this, it's time to make some change.
And diversity.
It is still a very white male dominated industry wherever you go, pretty much in the world.
Or rather, the lack of it, and those doing their part to change it.
I think that we've made a big impression in the industry. I think that we have definitely set ourselves apart as a disruptor.
When Pouring Colorado continues. A social media reckoning created an important conversation in the craft beer industry about 1.5 years ago. A female brewer opened up about her experiences with toxicity in the workplace. Then her story sparked others to share theirs. 2 women in the Colorado beer industry shared their experiences with us. The post from a female brewer in a different state was simple.
She said, next up, what sexist comments have you experienced?
A question.
Okay, but where's the person in charge here? You can't be it, you're a woman.
That within days had thousands of answers.
Because at the beginning it was just comments that people have experienced, and then it sort of morphed into something bigger than that.
Betsy Lay owns Lady Justice Brewing.
I don't think any woman who read through those stories was surprised.
So I always give them a pre-rinse and then scrub them.
Beth Doherty has brewed in Denver for 9 years, most recently at Ratio Beer Works in Rhino.
Anyone, especially who works in the industry, who is saying they're surprised and shocked by this, their eyes haven't been open. Women can't brew because they can't lift heavy things, can't keep up, can't manage their time.
Both women have heard the snide comments from men in tap room.
We get a lot of people who don't believe that I know how to brew.
Are you one of those hired promo girls? Do you drink beer?
Wondering if our yeast came from our female anatomy.
It got incredibly difficult for me.
Bess can relate to the even darker side of being a woman in this male-dominated field where alcohol flows freely.
I've lost count of how many times at events and festivals I've been groped by people in the industry and people outside of the industry, up to and including like being raped by a former coworker. And it's one of those impossible feeling situations because all the boys stick together. This is their house, and I'm coming in.
Both Bess and Betsy say they've been talking about this for years.
We still don't necessarily have an organized effort to make these changes in the beer industry yet.
It just makes me want to burn it all down and change it and actually make it the inclusive industry that it touts itself to be.
The latest reckoning.
I didn't know girls liked beer, which is...
might be the first step to get the industry to pay attention.
And so I think now that it's hard to ignore this, it's time to make some change.
Growing up, I remember never being able to figure out if I wanted to get into art or science. And then I found this, and it's this beautiful blend of art and science, and I'm good at it, and I love it. And I'm gonna fight for it. This is our industry too.
Now, there's still a lot of work to be done, but since those stories came out, the Brewers Association has started to provide a lot more resources for women in the industry, including HR reps to deal specifically with issues just like those. Right now, 92% of breweries in the United States are owned by someone who is white. That trend holds here in Colorado too. 9 News producer Victoria Valenzuela found history plays a large role in the industry's diversity, or lack thereof.
My husband, Jesse, and I decided to start Wagwan back in 2020.
And she lost her job in 2020, and I also lost my job.
The pandemic provided a new beginning for Jesse and Harsha.
Our first date was at Avery Brewing Company in Boulder, so it's a very full circle that we own a brewery.
One of just a handful of Black-owned breweries in Colorado.
Wagwan means what's going on or what's up in Patois.
Wagwan is fighting to bring inclusion.
It's the vibe that we wanted to create for the brewery.
And diversity to the beer scene.
And we realized that there wasn't a lot of differentiation.
Not only in their name.
We decided to use my Jamaican heritage as our differentiation factor.
But in their business model.
We work a lot with other women-owned and minority-owned businesses for taproom pop-ups, for any specific donations that we do throughout the year. So definitely trying to support our community that we're both from, but also make sure that their voices are heard and they have a space to come together if they need it.
Breaking barriers for other BIPOC business owners.
We both want to hold the door open, and not just hold the door open, we want to take the door off its hinges.
An effort to build community in an industry driven mostly by white business owners.
It's not craft beer, it's just the United States, right? We're just seeing it in craft beer.
Dr. J. Jackson Beckham is the Brewers Association Equity and Inclusion Partner.
It was a little bit of a perfect storm, right? That's kind of happened over the last couple of decades.
She says the issue within the brewing industry goes back to the micro beer revolution.
60s and 70s, that is the height of the civil rights movement.
School desegregation made way for redlining and lending discrimination.
And what you see is a lot of folks, men of means, and largely, white men who are able to kind of open that door.
And decades later, lending still favors those with generational wealth, leaving out those without.
And that makes starting up a capital-intensive business really hard.
We've had to just keep plugging along and trying to find community loans and microloans.
Harsha and I still work full-time, and that's been pretty much a requirement.
Despite the issues facing the industry, Dr. J says Wagwan is on the right track.
There's been some great examples of folks who have done some really unique collaboration work to, defray cost by sharing it with other people, or using kind of, creative methods to get, up and running.
She says the key to success is connection.
So my advice really is talk to folks.
And putting people first, which is what you see when you walk into Wagwan.
We center it around our staff. We're an inviting space. We don't discriminate. We have a very diverse staff.
We try to accept any and everyone that's interested in learning about beer and wants to be a part of the industry.
By putting people first, Her hope is the connections lead to a more inclusive, diverse industry.
You know, I really believe that diversity, you know, this kind of healthy, flourishing mix of people that work together is an outcome, right? It's what happens after you have done some other work.
And diversity leads to a broader change in brewing.
That is kind of what has gotten us to this point, knowing that we are striving for inclusivity in all ways, so making sure that we're doing that every day.
While the owners of Wagwan have struggled to find support, Dr. J says the Brewers Association does have a lot of programs aimed at helping brewery owners at any stage of their business. They have mentorship programs, a grant program. They also have a program called Thrive, which helps brewery owners balance DE&I initiatives, find wellness programs, and HR support. There are also those working toward change, starting in Colorado's classroom.
I always thought there was quite the potential to make a difference in craft beer.
And I'm so excited to be working with it and learning about it.
We're peeking in on the process of brewing the next generation when Pouring Colorado continues. We've shown you some of the shortcomings in the craft beer industry, especially when it comes to diversity. But there are programs here in Colorado working to solve some of those problems. Here again is Victoria Valenzuela with how they're brewing the next generation.
The more inclusivity, the cooler craft beer gets.
KUSA Heber has had her share of challenges getting into beer.
I moved out of Cincinnati because it was definitely very difficult to even just be a straight female trying to get into the beer industry.
She came to Denver.
Colorado always had a lot of dope female brewers.
And eventually bought Gold Spot. It's one of several women-owned and one of only 3 queer-owned breweries in the state. And in an effort to change the future, she's teaching the next generation of brewers at Regis University.
So I always joke that I teach the youth of America that's older than me.
Classmates Andres and Sabrina are both in the Applied Craft Brewing program. They say they know what they're getting into, from both a business perspective,
it's not easy. You got to put a lot of effort into it,
and a personal one.
I feel a little bit of insecurity just in terms of being wanting to be taken seriously.
I would say getting my voice heard, hey, I'm Latino and I'm here.
Data collected by the Brewers Association in October of 2021 shows just under 3% of breweries in the nation are fully women-owned, and only 2.2% of owners are Hispanic or Latino.
It's a boys' club.
KUSA has ideas to try to improve those numbers, from access to the classroom.
I really want to have a scholarship program that is for women, queers, people of color,
to mindful planning for the real world.
Also, we're working on a lot of DEI 101, 202, that sort of coursework that then every single brewery can have access at any time, because the more inclusive we can be as an industry, the more money we can also make. So it's just good business.
And there's already signs of positive change. Andres grew up in Puerto Rico, and he says he's already finding inspiration here in Colorado.
Cheluna Brewing in Aurora, Colorado, and Raíces Brewing in Denver, Colorado, because they're both Latino-owned, and they just make things that are out of this world, and they bring their roots to them.
He has dreams of showcasing his roots as well.
Try out things with Puerto Rican ingredients, maybe yucca root or a different type of starch, adding plantains to a beer, maybe give it a little sweetness.
For Sabrina, her internship at Gold Spot has given her hope.
It's made a huge difference in terms of feeling supported, and it just feels like existing as myself and not existing as an ideal or something that is meant to be in a particular place.
So she can focus on what brings her joy.
The art and the craft itself, that's why I started this.
And KUSA says she'll do what she can to help her students succeed.
Craft beer is for everybody, we just haven't treated it like that.
Sabrina says that while she loves beer, she wants to try to bring a spotlight to mead in the U.S. Andres wants to open something called a fermentation project. It would focus on all sorts of fermented beverages, all the way from beer and mead to kombucha and wine. Now, despite the challenges of the industry, it's the love of the culture that brings a lot of people to beer. Some final thoughts when Pouring Colorado continues. One more thing before we go. There's a reason that so many of us love this industry, whether you're a home brewer, a pro brewer, or someone just working in a tap room trying to get their foot in the door. Most of us will say the same thing. Beer is fun.
Honestly, the second I started homebrewing, I was like, this is my
What you're doing in that room is creating and working, and I just enjoy that so much personally.
For me, brewing beer was like kind of this great mix of art and science.
Serving good beer and homemade beer and local beer to people and seeing their reactions made it all worthwhile.
Obviously, I love coming across that beer that just completely blows your mind.
That's what's cool about brewing. You can do whatever your imagination can think of. It's half art, half science.
That anyone is welcome to join us and anyone is welcome here.
Just seeing everyone just so happy, like for those moments, is like why you want to get up in the morning.
So that's it. Our thanks to Public Offering Brewing on South Broadway in Denver. You know, there's a lot more we could talk about. I mean, I could talk about beer all day. But for now, I'll just grab another and say cheers to pouring Colorado.